All right. Good morning, everyone. And I wanted to talk about something really quick. I put this on Moodle. There's a um, there is an event that's being put on by the Texas LMFT LPC, um, actually psychology and social worker. So basically the whole BHEC system on May 4th. Now this is in Dallas, so if you're not in around the Dallas area, this would be a little more difficult to get to, but it's called supervisor speed dating. And it's basically for folks to find supervisors for for your associate licensing process. Um, this is I don't think anyone's ever done anything like this. This is kind of a cool thing. I think actually I know Dr. Hubbard's actually going to be there. Um, and so that's kind of a neat thing going on. Uh, I'll put the flyer on Moodle. You can see it there. There's actually someone that you'll need to contact just to RSVP. They're trying to get an idea how many folks will be there for it. Um, so I think that's a great thing, especially if, as you've taken your exam and you pass your exam and then get further along in the application process, um, finding a supervisor can sometimes be difficult. So this is just a good opportunity to meet several of them and talk with them and let them talk with you. And so I think it's kind of a cool event that they're doing. So that's on May 4th, and the flyers on Moodle. And okay. Also, I had a couple of questions just about a couple of things I was going to go over really fast about the reflection paper. A couple of questions about the reflection paper, just where to turn it in. I had some people email it to me, which is okay. I'd rather you actually upload it to Moodle so I can keep track of who's turned in what. Honestly, it's really just because I get like a ton of emails and I just don't want it to get lost in the shuffle of email. I do try to respond to people as quickly as I can, but sometimes I'll get things get lost in the shuffle. So I do want you to upload those to Moodle. Um, and there's folders on Moodle. The folders are actually in the last week of the semester down there where you can upload. You can upload your reflection paper, both your evals and your practicum hours. There's folders for each one of those three things. Um, and so if you could upload those, that'd be great. And I've already got quite a few in there now, which is great. You can technically write that reflection paper whenever you get ready to do that. Another quick, uh, it's just an editing thing on Moodle that I just overlooked until today. Um, we have a we have our next um, we're going to have our next Zoom class on the let me get to the right place on the let's see, I think I got my dates mixed up. The last time we're meeting is May 17th for sure, and I feel like I think I got my dates mixed up. I'm sorry, the last time we're meeting is on the yeah, I got my dates mixed up here. I'm gonna have to fix the dates for it. I'll send out a reminder. Because I'm teaching in Frisco, and I think when I did this, I thought I was teaching Saturday one, but I'm teaching Saturday two. So I need to I'll fix the dates for that, and I'll send out a reminder about it. I'll fix that. I'll fix that and send that out. The next time we meet will be the 26th, April 26th. And then we'll meet again for the last time on the 10th. I think I said the 17th. It's actually the 10th, but I'll fix it in Moodle and I'll send out a reminder too for everybody. Um, Okay, cool. Let's get this out of the way. All right. So, um, you guys can turn in the reflection paper, the evals, the all your hours. Um, I just I like to have those by the ninth week of the session, just so we're not scrambling. So um, if we can do it then, that's awesome. I realize that some people might have sometimes you have trouble getting supervisor signatures. I know that can be hard. My advice is to kind of start on that early. Don't because sometimes they leave town, or especially during the summer. So we get in the spring into the summer. A lot of times they'll leave town, so try to get those signatures and those evals from them as quick as you can. Um, Technically, you can get those evals anytime now, because you probably had been at that site for a little while. Just try to get the evals. That's going to be very helpful because supervisors do tend, they're going to sometimes leave, and I don't want anybody to freak out too much as we get to the end. That's why we turn them in a little bit early. Um, and uh, so, okay, the last day to turn in anything is the last day of the session, May 22nd, I believe. So May 22nd is great. I would really love to have it before that, but May 22nd is the last drop dead. Got to have it by then date. Um, and then actually this year is a little different. This the spring session is different. Our graduation this year is on Thursday, that on the 22nd, on Thursday. Um, uh, so technically we turn everything in and we graduate on the same day, which has never happened before. And so if you're going to actually be at graduation and walk, that's going to be on the 22nd. And we'll talk more about that kind of as we get closer. If you register, hopefully everyone registered for graduation. You should have gotten some information about it by now. You should have heard back. If you're going to walk, not everybody does. Some people do, some people don't. It's kind of up to you. Um, it's your preference if you do that or not. Um, it's actually kind of a cool ceremony, and um, it's not. I don't mean this to sound weird, but it's not like super long either. But it's kind of a cool. I kind of think it's cool because a lot of times when people walk, they bring family with them on stage or bring their kids. I mean, it's just kind of there's a lot of cool moments to it. A lot of folks putting in a lot of time and energy and effort over years sometimes, and watching them kind of finish is kind of cool to watch. So it's just I think it's a really good ceremony. So that'll be on the 22nd. And typically, and I think I said this last time, typically once all the grades are in, which I usually turn the grades in on that Friday, um, most typically the transcripts are ready that next week, sometime after Monday. It's usually Tuesday or Wednesday of the following week. Usually the transcripts are ready. And so just FYI, um, as you're kind of planning ahead. And we will talk about this again as we get closer to that time. Okay. Um, all right. Now, let me take a step back for a second. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Can I
I
ask
have,
a question?
Yep.
So, what can you tell us, if I'm saying this right, what can you tell us about the jurisprudence exam?
Jurisprudence.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the jurisprudence is very simple. Um, you basically take it until you pass it. So if you don't pass it the first time, you take it again. It's the exact same questions every time. You take it till you pass it. It's just it's one of the requirements for your license. And you can take that anytime, like you could take that today if you wanted to. And once you've passed it, you'll get a certificate that you'll keep, and that'll be part of things that you'll turn in with the application as well. the board will see that you've completed it as well, but it's just good to kind of turn all those things in.
So
You'll
we take
typically
that, like after we take the NCE, we take it and then turn both of them in at the same time?
so you can take it anytime. The NCE, the scores will be sent to the board, but you'll see your score. I don't know. I can't remember how long it takes to get your, the official official score. Because the LMFT and the LPC are different in terms of timing, but the jurisprudence is a totally different thing. You can you find out if you pass or fail the LPC right away, the NCE. You find out that day your score, but you get something official, I think, after that. But the board also gets a copy of those as well. So, um, I mean, you typically the jurisprudence you'll also take like I think I took it one or two more times, maybe I think. But if you ever have to take it again, they'll let you know. Like you'll get a letter saying, "Hey, take this again." I think I had to take it one more time, maybe two. I can't remember. Um, it's not hard.
Is it like ethics
It's
questions
all
or
ethics. It's all ethics and law, and um, it's not. It's probably the easiest thing you'll do for sure. I'm assuming some people have probably already done it here.
Do LMFT and LPC take that
Everybody takes it.
jurisprudence?
Yep,
Okay,
everybody
so
takes it.
for LMFT, it's that exam and the MFT exam, and that's it, or are there more than
That's it.
that?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You get
the way it's set up now, you can't even fail. It will actually show you like the part of the ethics code with the answer in it if you like pick the wrong answer.
yep.
So it's all kind of done right then. It pretty much forces you to pass.
Yeah, you can't fail it. You take it till you pass it.
Is it specific to Texas, like for the Texas codes and all that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I have
Yep.
to do the jurisprudence exam for my nursing licensure every 2 years. I think it's every 4 years or 6 years. I don't know. It's not every relicensure period. It's only some. Is that the same for these licenses or you just take it once?
I think I took it. I think I've taken it three times, maybe in 15 years. I just can't remember.
Okay.
Um, I think I took it. I took it the first time, and then I think I took it again before I got my full license, and then maybe when I got my license. I just can't remember. But it's not every year, unless
Yes.
something's changed. Haven't seen anything about that. I just renewed my license this year, and it's renewed. And I haven't taken it in 10 years probably. Um, but you can't fail it. You take it till you pass it. You can take it now. I mean, it's probably one of the easier things you'll do for sure. It's just a hoop to jump through. And everybody takes it, all the mental health professionals take it for sure. So good question. Any other
I have
questions?
Always,
I have a question about the licensing exam. I know that the LPC handbook says to take the NCE for a license. However, I'm thinking of at some point, maybe in like next year or 2 years from now, I'm probably moving to Florida. And for their license, they don't accept the NCE. They take the NCM HCE. Um, According to the Texas behavioral board, they can accept the NCE and NCMHCE, from my understanding. Um, do you recommend that I just take the NCMHCE, or should I take the NCE now and then the other one when I move to Florida, or does it matter?
I mean, I wouldn't take two if it was me.
That's my thinking.
Yeah, I know the Texas will take both. They're different exams. Um, they're definitely different.
Mhm.
We've had some people take that one though. Uh, But you're saying Florida doesn't accept the NCE.
From my understanding, they don't. They only take the NCM HCE.
New Mexico doesn't either. I thought about the same thing of just taking that other one because New Mexico doesn't either. And I don't know if I'm gonna move there one day, so those are the same thing.
So this is my pitch to make sure, like I would call someone, like talk to someone about it, and you might have already done this. If like I would
I have
actually
not.
talk to someone on the board there, whatever state, and just double check. And the only reason why I'm saying that is, um, I would just double check. And if that's still the case, that's fine. The other exam is fine. You can take that one. I mean, if it was me, I would not take more exams that I had to take. First, that's I wouldn't personally.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying
Yeah,
to be, efficient with my time.
yeah.
Um, I am confused. So I think that it's what you suggest. I'll call the Florida board because they do list the NCE, but only as they say that if you want your existing license to be endorsed in Florida, then they take the NCE as you meet the requirement. But if you're applying for licensing there, they only accept the NCM HCE. So I'm a little confused about it, but no.
Well, you don't have a license at all, so
Right, exactly. So they wouldn't be endorsing anything. I would be applying for.
there's two things I would ask about if I was you. I would ask about the wording. Obviously, it's a little. You guys will find that if you go to another state, wording matters. So that's why I always call them. I've done licensing processes in 4 states, so they're all different. That's why I always talk to like a human being person, and sometimes they change their requirements too. Um, Definitely call them because that wording's weird. But the second thing I would honestly in New Mexico too, like I would tell them, hey, I'm about to be an associate, right? Like I'm not going to have my full license for X amount of time. Um, can I be an associate in your state? Or do I need, because you need to make sure you don't need meet other requirements just to be an associate. It's different once you have your full license and then you go and try to get a license in a state. That's a little bit different. That process is a little different.
Okay.
Because most every state will at least recognize that you have a full license. You might have some other hoops to jump through, but you want to make sure as an associate, if you're there, make sure that you do whatever you need to do to become an associate. Does that make sense?
Makes
Hopefully.
sense. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just double check with them. Uh, and if they say they're not sure, if they say they're not sure, find someone else to talk to because they should know. They should have an idea. Uh, just in full disclosure, the most wide open state is Washington. Like that's probably the easiest state to get a license.
Good to know.
It's also expensive for some reason. They charge a lot, but and they have a kind of a different process, but it's actually easy to get a license in Washington. So um, California is probably the hardest because you have to take even like I've been having my license for almost 16 years. If I wanted to go to California, I have to take a whole other test to jump into California. So they're probably the hardest. But I definitely wouldn't take 2 exams if I didn't have to. I wouldn't. I know that the board takes either one of those exams. I'm like 99% sure about that because we've had students in Emerson take the other exam. I never can remember I'm sorry, I can't remember the
It's
letters.
way too long.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you.
But they are different. The other one is a lot more application based than the NCE. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, it is my understanding as well. As far as from the content that I've reviewed, it looks like 11 case studies that they present, and then they ask you questions about related
Yeah,
to the clients
yeah,
that they present. So,
yeah,
like treatment planning and diagnosis and ethics
yep,
questions related
yep,
to those clients
yep.
and things like that.
And maybe that's why this, yeah. I just double check with the state and see, because the wording you just said about Florida that's a little bit weird. They make them a little
It
bit,
is, yeah.
they make it a little bit gray on purpose, I think sometimes. But yeah, that's a good question. Is anyone thinking about going to other states, like being in multiple states? You don't have to live there either. You just be licensed there. High need states right now are Washington, Illinois, Florida, California, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Those are the big high need states right now. Last time I kind of looked. And apparently, Pennsylvania, I think is of all, Washington's the easiest of all those. Pennsylvania's probably second, apparently. I've got a friend that's I have a friend that's licensed in 10 states. So I talk to her a lot about different things like that when I'm thinking about like another state that she's in. Which is that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of fees you gotta pay.
I have a question.
Yep.
I should probably already know this honestly, but I'm a school teacher, so I'm trying to do my internships in the summers, like after this. Is there like a time limit of that I need to get those I can't remember the number of hours right now, even for the internship, but is there a time limit between the time I graduate and like when I need to fulfill, like take the test? Because I was planning to take the test after graduation and then do
Mhm.
my internship in the summer. Are there expirations on those things?
So you're saying you're going to take the exam and then start your associate process in the summer is what you're saying?
Yeah, like I should be graduating in August and I want to study for the exam during the school year just because it's a lot
Yeah.
with me working right now.
Yeah.
And then I already have a place that will let me do the internships in the summers. So is there like a time expiration between the time of
Okay. Yeah.
graduation?
You have 5 years
Okay. Okay. And then
and
am I turning just everything into the board or do I turn it into the school as well
well, you don't turn anything into us
after I graduate?
after you
I just turn
graduate.
everything into
Yeah.
who?
Everything revolves around the state after you graduate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I have 5 like calendar years, you said?
5 years from the moment you get your associate license.
Okay, and you get what about between me graduating and taking the test? Because I was planning to take the test after graduation, but I see some people are is is that would start me getting my associate license, right? I'd have to take the test, or is it 5 years from when I graduate?
From when you get your associate license. You can't get your license before you take the exam. That's part of
Okay.
the right. So are you doing LMFT, Hannah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can take your exam in the summer if you want, like this coming summer, even.
Okay, so I don't have to take it any time after I graduate.
No, you can take it anytime now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, right, but I'm trying to take it later rather than sooner. That's what I'm asking. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. You
Okay.
can take it whenever you want.
Okay,
Mhm.
so there's no time that I have to take it after graduating from Amberton. Okay,
No,
thank you. That's helpful.
no. Yeah. And if you don't get this is for everybody. If you don't get your license within that time frame, you can't petition for more time. Um,
Hopefully I will before then, but
yeah.
thank you. That's
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? So say you graduate and you take the exam and you pass that, is there a time period that you have to apply for the license? Before you would have to retake the test or something, or does that not explain?
I'm sure there is, but I don't know what it is. I don't know how long it's valid. I'm assuming it's valid for a little while. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I'm so sorry I'm being annoying. I'm just gonna
No,
clarify
you're
one more
fine.
time. I can
You're fine.
graduate in August and then take it like this coming June, not June next month, but like the following June. I can take the exam then.
You you can.
Okay. Is-
What I would do if you're going to wait that long, just double check like how long you have between graduation and taking the exam.
Who do I double check that with?
That you'll call the board and ask them. So
Okay.
call the LMFT board or contact or email them. Here's FYI too. I forgot to mention this, Sergio, when you were asking this question. Whoever you guys talk to about any of these things, when you talk to a person, just request that they send you an email confirmation. Get something in writing, and they will do that. They'll send you an email. So Hannah, in this case, if you call someone and say, "Hey, I'm going to graduate in August, but I don't want to take this exam until June of 2026," and they say, "Yeah, that's fine." Get them to send you something in writing about it.
Okay, and I'm just emailing the Texas board or
I mean, I would call them first. And to be
okay.
honest, the LMFT board answers way quicker than the LPC board does.
Okay.
You can email them too. There's information on the website there, but I would call them first for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know I don't know how long. I really don't know the time frames of it. Like if you wait too long, I actually don't know that.
With the other states, does the accreditation stuff come off a lot, or is it just like the K-CREP stuff? Does that come up a lot?
I don't know. It's a good question. I've never.
Have come up like I know I looked for some, I have friends that live in New York who were always saying how much they need people in New York. So I thought, well, I'll see if I can do that. And theirs basically says if you don't have that, you have to wait till you have your actual license.
Well, I think most states might tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
don't know how many.
you can't do your associate's license there. You have to wait.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true in most states,
Okay. I was just
regardless.
wondering.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's after the 3,000 hours that you would
correct.
go through. Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to wait 2 years. Like a lot of
Yeah.
times, the requirement's 2 years of full licensure, and that's
Mhm.
regardless of K-CRIP or anything. That's been a rule for quite a while,
Yeah.
actually.
The K-CREP seems to be just the LPCA rule, and then after that, I don't know. They're all different.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I don't. I to be honest with you, I'm not sure um, what.
It says you can apply anyway, and they'll look at your transcripts and they'll like look into the program and all that kind of stuff, even if it's not.
Which they would do
But
anyway if we were K-CRIP. They would do the same thing. So
I know.
it's not the K-CRIP being in a K-CRIP program's not guaranteed either of anything. It's just
Right.
so I and the LMFT has a different COAMPT is I mean it's two totally different body. Now I don't want to confuse you guys, but I mean this
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, there's one that says it can be one of these three, and that's just one of three that they list. So,
yeah, yeah. Um and Monique's putting something in here about Chat GPT. You can definitely use some AI like Chat GPT to ask questions of like KCREP versus not KCREP. You can get any of that information from there because it's open sourcing from the internet. So instead of having to look for it, you can ask it, "Hey, look for this for me." You can do that too. It's a great suggestion. Um, the bottom line of get if you go to another state, at least right now, I don't know if this will change, but the bottom line typically 9 times out of 10 is you need to have your license first before you do it. Um, but again, that's why I'm saying I know that there's things that are written, and then when you talk to people, like a live person, sometimes you find out a little bit different information. So I would always suggest you talk to someone for sure. And then if whatever they tell you, tell them to send it in writing. You want to have it, you know, something written down. Um, I'll give you an example. I was going to be traveling over the holidays a couple of years ago, and I it doesn't necessarily matter where I'm at when I see my clients because I see everybody virtually as long as my clients are in the state that I'm licensed in. But this particular state I was traveling to, I needed to get the board's permission from that state to see those clients in another state. And in this particular case, they said no, I could not do that. Um, and so I was unable to see the clients. I traveled like in a summer, like during the summertime one year, and actually New Mexico was the place I was traveling to, and they didn't care. They were like, "Yeah, that's fine." But I got them to send me a, you know, something in writing saying, "Hey, while you're here, you can see clients." Um, Typically, so the reason why I'm bringing all these things up is it's helpful to, you know, talk to people about like what the requirements are. And the other reason I'm bringing this up is some of these requirements are probably going to change as we go farther into kind of the telehealth world, the virtual world. It's kind of interesting um, what's happening right now because the 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 talk about like insurance, for example, before COVID, insurance didn't necessarily cover virtual visits. During COVID, there was like the injunctions in place that made it so that all telehealth could be covered by insurance. The fear was after COVID that insurance companies would go back to the pre-COVID policies, but they have not, which is kind of interesting. And so some states right now, like Texas, is actually trying to make it codify it, basically make it so that they can't go back and say, you know, you have to include virtual inside every policy because it's technically not there for every policy. So there's just some things that are going on, and I'm bringing some of these things up because I want you to just be aware of those things. As my dog goes crazy for no reason. Thank you. Okay. He's like this big, and he thinks he's a lion. He just goes crazy, and then he just licks people to death. Anyway, I don't want to go down too many rabbit trails about this, but this is kind of the next step of things to think about if you're going to join other states or if you're thinking about it. But typically, you'll need to get your full license before that anyway. So, but this pig, kind of piggybacks into a couple of things we're going to talk about today anyway. So, good questions. Any other questions about any of these things, or any? It could be anything.
I have a question about the practicum documentation form for submitting to the board. Is that something that Amberton fills out or our supervisor? Because looking at it, it says kind of practicum supervisor or school
Yeah.
official.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. The Amberton fills it out for sure. And so what'll happen is after you graduate and you're getting all your things ready for the application, you'll fill that form out yourself, and then you'll send it to Gina Termenstein, who's works in the academic affairs, and then she'll get the dean to sign it. And the reason why we sign it is because we are saying as a school that you have completed all your practicum requirements because you complete them with us, not just with your supervisor. Because some people have more than one supervisor or more than one site or more than two sites. So we're saying if you had one, two, or three sites, no matter what the case, you completed all the requirements of your practicum with us. And we're signing off and saying, yes, this is correct. And then she'll send it right back to you. Like you'll get it that day, like pretty quick. She'll send it right back to you, and then you can take it and turn it in with your application. I'm going to tell you all of these things in another 3 weeks because no one's going to remember. And then I'm going to send you an email about it, and then I'm going to send you a Moodle message about it, and then I'm going to tell you again. So I'm going to do
So,
all of that again. Yeah.
so even if like we wrap up one site now or
Mhm.
prior to graduation, we have to wait until after graduation to
Correct.
submit it?
That's
Okay.
correct. That's right. Yeah. And literally, it's so the wording, Marlo, is so confusing. 100%. It's very confusing writing. It really is. I don't know why they say it the way they say it. I'm sure there's a reason, but if you graduate from a program, the program's always going to sign off on your practicum hours. Now, let me just say one more thing, and I'm going to say this again too. We've had students in the past for some reason when they put their hours, like you have to have 300 hours to graduate. Sometimes people don't put for some reason will put like 260 hours. And then the board automatically rejects your application. And I'm not like, sometimes people don't add, like, you get 40 hours for this class, and you get 40 hours for practicum one. Sometimes people don't add those into their hours. Or I don't, this hasn't happened a lot, but just make sure that you put, 300 hours or 320 hours or whatever it is. Make sure you write down the number of hours. If you don't get your hours for in time, if you're a little bit short, it's okay. If you're going to be like 20 hours short, then we're going to have to probably help you do something different, and you can't really apply till you have your hours. But just FYI, like, if you graduated, that means I've seen your hours and they've all added up to 300 and you're good to go. But for some reason, sometimes people don't put all of those. I don't really understand that, but that's happened more than once. So I'm going to tell you all this stuff again in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Does that help? Hopefully.
Yes, thank you.
You bet. That's a great question. Because that form is super confusing. I agree.
And the ethics exam that starts with the P, I already forgot the name of it. Where do we sign up for that one?
The jurisprudence exam.
Jurisprudence, thank you.
Yeah, everything's on that BHEC website. It should have it used to have a link, like you just click it and it takes you right to it. Has anybody taken it?
I have.
Yeah. How was there a link on the site that took you right to it? Should have.
Yeah, there was a link on the main site, and it was, I mean, you have to like create a login, but it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And it's not like the NCE where I have to go schedule, pay a huge amount of money.
No, it's not.
Well, it's timed, but it'll even let you like start and stop. And I think it gives you like 2 hours. And honestly, it took about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. You don't have to pay for it. The NCE and LMFT exams, you definitely have to pay for sure. From now on, you're paying for everything. CEUs, license renewals, whatever, everything, paying for everything. Okay. Any other questions? Good questions. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to put everybody in groups for about 10 minutes or so, roughly. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of different topics that are private practice related, but also some related to just like contracts when you find a site and making money, like how do we start making money doing that? I mean, things like that. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of those things. I put a video of an interview I did with Chris Kendall, who's a friend of mine that's a CPA. It's on Moodle from like 3 years ago. He does a great job of explaining several different areas of basically being a 1099 employee, self-employed person. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then we'll have questions too. Like we'll field some questions and talk a little bit about it. What I'd like for everyone to do now, and I found this to be helpful, is I'm going to put everyone in groups, and I want you to all to generate as many questions as you can think of about like, hey, what private practice, what's that mean? What about insurance? How do I set my rates? Like whatever you can think of related to that, I'd like for you to generate questions for that. And most of them will be the same, but that's okay. I just kind of wants to start talking about it a little bit. The one thing that most programs don't do at all is talk about this at all during the program. Amberson's actually in the process of developing a private practice class as an elective, which is going to be really cool. I'm trying to advocate that maybe we make it available to like everybody, like alumni and everybody, because I think it'll be really good, a really good class. And so I will put you guys in groups. Any kind of question about anything dealing with private practice or next steps or how do we make money or what about taxes, anything you think of or things you've heard. I heard this about insurance or whatever. Okay. Hey, I was talking to so and so in the Facebook group and they said this, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. Anything you can think of, just any question. And I'll bring you back in like 10 minutes or so, roughly, or maybe 12, and then we'll talk about it. So let's do this is where everybody shows their face. I love it. I like to see everybody's face. Okay, you should see your link there. All right. Talk to me a little bit about any questions that you had or what you were talking about or anything that you're thinking about. I'm going to cover several different areas, but I just like to hear what questions that you have or things that you talked about.
I'm interested if you work at a like place where you have a W-2, income normally, but you also want to see a few clients just
On the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that actually. That's a good question. Sometimes it depends on where you work. If you have a non-compete type of clause of any kind, like where you work, most places might not care as much. But it's not uncommon to, like, say you were at a practice, but you thought, I kind of want to go on my own. It's not uncommon to think, well, let me start building that, to the side, and you can do that. It really just depends on where you're working, the place that you're working.
Yeah,
And
I'm
if
thinking
they,
like work in a hospital setting, but I also want to see outpatient,
yeah,
people.
if you're in that case, it won't. That's fine. You wouldn't have a problem doing that. But there is a large difference between W-2 world and self-employed world, so which we'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, you can do that. Though what you're asking, you can do that. It's um, yeah, it's doable. What other things did everybody talk about or questions or?
We had one about the rules around advertising as an LPCA and like what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do. Because I've seen a lot of therapists online where some are super open about their religious beliefs or political beliefs and approaches
Yeah.
online, and others are really neutral. And I just wasn't sure what the rules are around that.
Well, the main rule is you can't advertise yourself as something that you're not. That's the main rule. You can't advertise as like as an LPC or an LMFT if you're an associate. Just like right now, none of you could advertise yourself as an associate because you're actually a student intern. So that's the main rule. The other, the gray areas are kind of what you're mentioning when people bring up things like maybe religious belief or political belief or whatever. Um, I think it just depends on what you say, probably more than anything. Um, Now, if we talk about it in terms of when you're doing sessions with people in general, you're not there to push something on someone, and you're not there to talk about any of these things unless they bring certain things up. And if they bring it up, then that's fine. Um, but there's no like hard and fast rule about what you can put on your like Psychology Today profile, other than you cannot represent yourself as something that you're not. And that goes for anything you write, right? Like if you say, I don't know, I'm an L like when you get your associate, I'm Chris Bedard, I'm an LPC associate, and I'm also an expert and certified in blah, blah, blah when I'm not, or whatever, right? So I'm certified in conflict management, but I'm not certified, never been certified. You can't say things like that. That's the kind, you can't represent yourself as something that you're not. Because here's the thing, the clients don't even know what LPC means or LMFT. They don't even know what that means, much less anything else you say. So whatever they read, they just like, oh, okay. That's why we have to be the ones to be responsible for it, not the clients. But the main thing is just don't represent yourself as something that you're not. That's the big one. Yeah, that's a good question though.
And
I
that
think
one kind
that
of went along with one of the questions that we had, like, how do we know what is appropriate to put? So we just put LPC at this point until we are actually certified in additional modalities. Is that accurate?
Well, I think I know what you're saying. You can only advertise yourself in a way that represents like what you have accomplished. When you graduate and you're an associate, you have to put that you're an associate under the supervision of whoever. When you have your license, you can say that you're an LPC, and you can't ever say that I'm an expert certified blah 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 in anything that you're not. And in terms of like modalities, yes, there are certifications you can get for almost all of the major modalities: CBT, DBT, EFT, IFS, certain types of trauma care, different things like that. The same would be true as if down the line, let's say 5 years down the line, you think, I want to be a supervisor. So then you're a supervisory candidate first, then you're an LPCS. So the same is true then too. So it's always better to err on the side of less. Does that make sense? Instead of saying something that potentially is not really true. Now, who's regulating this? We are. We regulate ourselves. I mean, no one's from the boards looking at everybody's, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's going out there and looking at everybody's, what they're writing up. But as an industry, we typically will kind of watch each other. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And Sergio, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no worries. Um, I had a question that came up for me early in the week, and then I thought about it again in the group. Um, I've been offered at my practicum site to stay with them beyond after practicum as a part-time or full-time employee. And a question that came up for me was what happens in the in-between period between I've graduated and I received my license. I had heard about extended practicum, so I thought that that was an option. But the owner of the agency, what she told me was that, well, what they can do is before I get my license, they can advertise my services as life coaching instead of counseling,
Mm.
um, which seems like an option, but at the same time, it's like, is that ethical for me to call myself a life coach? Um, is it? And how does that look? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. This is a good question. If you have to ask it, usually the answer is no,
That's what I thought.
most of the time. Can you do that? Yeah, you could. Um, I wouldn't do that. You don't want to do anything to lose your license before you get it.
Exactly.
So the extended practicum is literally for what you're talking about. either way, you won't be counting hours towards your full licensure anyway until you have your associate license. Whether you say you're a coach or still a student intern, you know what I mean? Like you're not. There's no benefit of that. Like you're not counting anything towards your license until
Right.
you get your associate license. So the extended practicum is literally there to help for people that want to like either find a site or want to stay at their site and they know they're gonna get their hours there. So you take the extended practicum while you wait for your associate license. And then most people just drop the class when they get it or just stay in it until they get their license. That's the extended practicum originally was for all the students that before COVID, you couldn't take the exam until you graduated. So you took the extended practicum while you took the exam and waited for your associate license. Now you can take the exam, now, right? So now we use the extended practicum because you're at a site, like for you, Sergio, you're at a site you're going to be at. So you're still practicing under the Amberton umbrella under extended practicum. And then when you get your associate, then you're done.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes sense. I just
I
thought
just
that
need
yeah.
a name in that for you, Sergio. I understand that debate of like, do I pay $1,000 so that I can get paid, $200 to see the few or whatever I'm getting for see the few patients that I'm seeing or clients that I'm seeing. Sorry, I work in the hospital setting. Versus do I rename myself life coach for a few months until I get my license? Like I understand that. I see that dilemma for you and understand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because as a
I totally
Mhm.
understand the dilemma. I
Mhm.
get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because as a life coach, the benefit would be that they can pay me. It's not, it's not fantastic pay, but it's something, especially as an intern, But I'd rather do things right and not get into any sort of gray areas before I actually get my license, and essentially put that in,
I am not going to tell you guys what to do, and I'm not going to make personal decisions for you. I'm just going to say, here's things to think about. You guys you're all adults. You'll figure out what you feel like is best. I will tell you that we have had students that did not get their license because of things like this. That has happened. But we've had students that probably were fine. So this is a great question. It's a great ethical dilemma. I think it would be great to bring up in the ethics class personally, because I hear this one a lot and I get it. Financially speak, like if this was just a financial decision, then you would only think about it in the financial way, right? But it's not really just a financial decision. It's multifaceted. And it's, but I know how hard it is to get almost to the finish line. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta wait another whatever, 6 weeks or 4 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. I know it's hard. I get that. I get that. Technically, anybody in here right now can say I'm a coach. That is not regulated. Anyone can say I'm a coach. You can do that now.
I mean, can you just kind of dig into like the weeds on that ethics dilemma there of like, if you have been seeing clients through your practicum, how ethical is it to say, I have to stop seeing you for these 6 weeks or 8 weeks until I can get my actual license versus it's more on me ethically to pay that $1,000 so that I can keep seeing you during this time and not interrupt that consistency with you. Like I'm just like weighing how as an individual you navigate that.
Well, I mean, so the question you're asking, I think, is how ethical is it to stop seeing the clients while you wait for your license versus potentially seeing them or seeing clients while under as a coach while you wait for your license? Well, you couldn't see those clients that you've been seeing as a coach because you've been seeing them as a mental health provider. That would be the first thing. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a black and white. That's just black and white to me. Um, I don't know if you wanted to start seeing, I mean, so anyone here could get your license and start working at a site and then decide that I want to start coaching people on the side. You could do that too. Like you can decide to do whatever you want. That's that's not really an issue. You can't do things and represent yourself as something that is not true. In other words, I can't say, well, I'm a life coach, but I'm really working on these mental health issues only. That's not necessarily accurate either. Um, if I really wanted to, we could argue the opposite of that too. Corinne, to your point, yeah, we can get into the weeds of it, and that's what makes ethics, right? It's the gray areas. So I could argue either side. I mean, I could argue either side, and if you needed to argue with the board, you probably could argue this with the board. I kind of think it's interesting that your site brought this up personally, if I'm being honest. I get what they're saying too. I understand what they might be just wanting to kind of get you going and get you started. Probably want to pay you and all those things. I get that part, but I typically will. I always will fall underneath this idea of like, let's don't do things that get us like don't lose your license. Like, what are you going to lose your license over? And to me, this would not be one to lose my license over personally. Does that make sense? That's why it's an ethical kind of dilemma.
Oh, it totally makes sense, and it raised a red flag for me. I'm not going to, disparage or say anything negative about my site, but I have seen a couple of things that have, I have questioned, but nothing to the extent that I would say, oh, I need to like run away. But
Yeah.
it was a question that made me feel like a little, I'm not sure how about doing that. So it's good to hear your perspective and everyone else's, and be able to make a decision that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, and ultimately, everyone has to make their own decision anyway about things like that. Um,
Can I ask another kind of ethical question about private practice? So, if
mhm.
you're seeing a client and they suddenly can't pay you anymore, so or can't afford your fees, so do you move to a sliding scale? Do you renegotiate in the middle? Do you refer them out? What do you do?
Yeah, any of those things.
Any of those things, whatever you feel is best?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was I I just had a thought, which was there's somebody at my site that he has a set amount of sliding scale clients he'll take. And like I reached out to him to see if he would take one of mine, because I had like an intern rate, and he had like that boundary set for himself of, oh, I just filled my last slot, which I liked that idea because I feel like if I didn't have my own number in my head of how many I would keep, I would probably like maybe take on too many. Um,
Yeah. Well, how many is too many?
Good question.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
how many can everybody work with?
I think it would depend on if you're the sole person paying the bills at the site.
That's definitely one variable for sure.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think Shannon, to answer your question of if you're going to refer someone, which you can refer people, you have to give, 2 to 3 referrals to people. If people can't, let me just talk about this from a perspective of like,
Because you can't
there's,
terminate. You wouldn't just want to terminate a client, would you?
well, you can't, that's up to them what they're going to do or not do. Like if someone can't pay you and you don't necessarily have to see them
Okay.
because they're not, here's the thing. We're
Mhm.
not friends with people. We're offering services, right? I don't want, please, I love people, first of all. I love people. I work with people. I work hard with people. I've been doing it for almost 30 years. At the same time, they're coming to you for a service, not for friendship. So the service now, if someone couldn't pay and that just happened, someone lost their job or something random happened, and
Mhm.
well, it's up to you to say, hey, let me work with you. Can you pay me $10? Whatever. I'm just saying, let's find you somewhere else to go that will be helpful for you or whatever. I mean, you can do that. You can help them transition and that would be the same if like you were leaving a practice or like moving or, something was going on and you needed to stop or you would do the same thing. Um, there's a couple of things that are important about our mindset. We go from a mindset of like this academic mindset of, how do we do therapy? How do we do counseling? Like what methods, what are our models? What theory are we thinking about to also having a entrepreneurial business mindset at the same time. So you have to have both together and figure out a way that works for you to integrate those into one kind of mindset. And once you do that, what I have found that's hard for most of us in a helping profession, sometimes we have a hard time with that charging a fee for kind of thing.
Mhm.
That can be hard for some of us. If you are the sole provider of your family, which I have been the whole time, I got over that real fast. Like it took me about 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I'm done with that, and it's still the case where like if you get into this for money, then I mean that this isn't a money thing. This isn't a money profession. You can do other things on top of what you're doing to earn more money for sure, but you have to work more to earn more. So this goes back to the question I was asking earlier. When we think about like number of people, number of clients that we think we can see or handle, or is it based on our stamina, how effective we can be, um, with the type of sessions we have, how much money we kind of need to make? I mean, what's it, right? All of those things probably are important. So if, if, and how long we've been doing it, because most of the time, the longer you have been doing it, the more people you can see. So I see between, I don't know, 25 and 35 people a week, roughly, depending on the week and depending on what I'm doing. I used to see up to 40, and I've kind of backed that off a little bit because I do other stuff too. But I've got friends that see 15, I've got friends that see 40, I've got friends that see 25. I mean, that part is really up to you, and you have to kind of figure out what works for you. The reason why I'm bringing it up this way is there's a couple of things that are important when we think about, okay, now I am in a world where, okay, I'm going to make money for what I'm doing. So I'm either in a W-2, work with a company that pays me and also pays half my taxes and Social Security, FICA, or I'm fully on my own or with another group where I'm self-employed. And then I pay my full set of taxes, Social Security, everything, right? Like I pay that whole
Mhm.
15% that usually the company pays half of, I'm paying all of. And if I'm self-employed and I'm not designated a certain way, I'm also paying another 15% of self-employment tax as well. And I don't have vacation time because if I don't work, what happens? I don't get paid. So that's the self-employment world. On the flip side of that, I'm in charge of my schedule. I'm in charge of how many or how little amount of people I see. There's a certain amount of like investment uh 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 like 401k type benefits potentially if you're on your own. Um, you're your own boss. You're in charge of yourself. You can do as much or as little as you want. So there's pros and cons to each side, but the big part of it to me is to think is try to think ahead as much as you can, and try to think about, okay, you know, there's definitely some people that, at least in my experience, and I don't know about everyone here, my assumption's kind of always like, okay, most of us here have grown up and have continued to be part of a W-2 world. I worked for a company or an organization where I wasn't self-employed. That's the majority of people that come to Amberton, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's now there's definitely people that come to Amberton that have been self-employed and kind of know that it's a different feeling. It's just different. It's not bad or good. It's just different, and different people handle it differently, and it's really up to you how you handle it. Um, uh, the 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 other thing to think about will be, and this will be true for you all as you start thinking about like where I'm going to work. There's basically a couple of different models of ownership of practices, and then there's probably variations of these too. There's one model that's basically like there's an owner and they take a percentage from everybody, and then you keep a percentage. And maybe it's a different percentage, maybe based on time served there, or maybe interns make a certain amount or whatever, right? You know, everybody pays a percentage. It's 50-50, it's 60-40, it's 70-30, whatever. And that's true when you get your full license. It's still the same. There's a split. There's the same kind of split. So you keep, 80% or 70% of what you make, right? So if you make, 7,000, you make $1,000, you keep 700, whatever, right? And so that's one kind of practice you can be a part of. The other time is where there's a practice, maybe someone started it, but everyone kind of cost shares. So let's say that we all are in part of this practice where I started it, but I don't want to take percentages. I just want us all to share like facility costs, administrative costs, marketing, all that stuff. So everyone here pays, I don't know, $1,000 a month, whatever, all including me. Everybody pays $1,000. So everything else you earn, you keep, and that's it. That's kind of it. That practice is dying a slow death because not a lot of people do that one as much. A lot of people do the first one because it's definitely better for the owner than it is for the people that work for the owner. Now, I've been a part of both. I like the second one, but I wasn't part of a really good team, and it just worked out really well for us. And so those are really kind of the things you can think about. It's going to be very common as you start out, as you jump into the associate world and you kind of find a place to go. 9 times out of 10, you're going to pay a percentage into wherever you're at. Unless you like a hospital would potentially like a hospital or a treatment facility or like a mental health facility, rehab facility. Those would be a little different. More times than not, you'd be W-2, so you wouldn't really be paying a percentage. And a lot of times you'd get supervision there too, potentially, which is the other thing you're going to be thinking about is supervision, because you're going to pay for supervision unless it's provided by the site. Let me just say this. When you go to a place and you sign a contract, if you do sign a contract to be at that site, and they say, this is a 60-40 split. You keep 60 and you pay us 40. I would suggest that you find out inside of that 40 what's that going to? Right? what's 40 of every 100 I make going towards? Can you just tell me? And they should be able to tell you. It's usually like marketing and administration and fees for service and paperwork, bookkeeping, all those things, right? It's usually that. Is it for supervision too? Because I worked at one place where I paid 40%, but I had to pay extra for supervision. And I did not stay there very long. But that was my fault. I didn't find that out at the beginning. That was on me. So you can ask questions like that. And I think that's perfectly fine to ask. They should be able to tell you. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Now, as you get further into get closer to your full licensure, maybe you're thinking, hey, I kind of want to do this myself, or I want to go, somewhere else. And, you can do that. Technically, right now, an LPCA or an LMFTA, either one, can start their own practice. You still have to be supervised by someone, but you can technically start your own practice. You can do that. And that's, again, basically this profession, like starting now for you, you will be as successful or unsuccessful depending on how much work you put into it. You have to hustle. I'm just being super honest. You have to hustle.
Would you create an LLC for your business instead
Great
of just
question.
individual?
Yeah, great question. So let's talk about tax implications real quick. So an LLC, which is really in Texas, is a professional limited liability corporation, or PLLC. So every person that's licensed, attorneys, doctors, mental health providers, everyone that's licensed in Texas is a PLLC if you create that. So I'm Chris Bedard, PLLC. It cost me $300 with the state. I filed it with the state. You can come up with whatever name you want, right? Therapy for Us, PLLC, whatever it is. And there's actually a listing of names that are already taken. You can kind of see if you like a certain name and you want to use it. The PLLC is what the state sees, and that tells them that you're a limited liability corporation, which means you have one little bit of a legal veil between you professionally and you personally. So in other words, when I started that, I separated all my personal accounts from my business accounts. I got a different phone. I got a different checking and savings account. I got a different credit card. Everything was different. I don't do anything business related with anything personal or vice versa. So the LLC or the PLLC just gives you a little bit of a veil of protection. Okay. If you want to take it farther, which some people now do, you can create an S Corp or a corporation, which in this case, it'd just be you as the owner, operator, president, everything, right? The S Corp has federal tax implications inside of it that are very beneficial to you, such as if you form an S Corp as a marriage and family therapist, when I formed my S Corp, and I did this, by the way, after I made many, many, many mistakes, horrible mistakes tax-wise. I formed an S Corp that basically I said what I report to the IRS is what they say a reasonable, how do they say it? A reasonable salary for the field or something like that's how it's worded. You report a reasonable salary for the field that you're in, whatever that is, right? So in the area of marriage and family therapy, I think I reported at the beginning $60,000 a year. That's $60,000 a year is what I get taxed on. If I make 90, I don't get taxed on the 30 more. I only get taxed on the 60. That 30 more is considered a dividend or something I'm putting back into the business, or like it's just seen differently. This is what doctors do, lawyers, anyone self-employed can do this. It's not illegal, totally legal. Tons of people do this. My suggestion about it, if you're really thinking about doing it, definitely talk to a CPA and a lawyer, or like just get information. I'm telling you that because I did this so long ago, and there's definitely some changes that have happened. You definitely like I have a CPA that does my taxes for me because there's just things that change all the time because of that, and so that I would always suggest that you do that, and they can kind of help walk you through what you need to do. That's a little bit more expensive to do, but I think it's very, very worth it, very much worth it to do it because that S corp is kind of the federal government's view of like tax wise because you pay a little bit, you pay less in self-employment tax as well. Like there's just some benefits to it. Now, having said all of that, you don't have to do any of those things. You can be what's called a sole proprietor. I own the business, I'm self-employed, and I'm a sole proprietor with zero protection between you personally and professionally. Like if somebody comes after you and sues your business, they can sue you personally too.
Does the S Corp also offer the same liability protection as the PLLC?
Somewhat, but it's different because the PLLC is such a that's just like a that's like your that's you incorporated basically, right?
Mhm.
It's not really it doesn't have anything to do with you personally. It's really the biggest veil of protection
So
that you
you would
have.
do both, like do both
I
of me,
would do both. I would
but
do both
incorporate
personally.
myself, and
Yeah.
then especially if you have any other assets that you might want to look that you
And
could
that and
vulnerable.
that and that's what and people but some people choose to do it or not.
Mhm.
I've got a Word document on Moodle that's got a great chart that lays out everything I just laid out, but a little bit more detailed if you guys want to look at it. Just talks about it at kind of a high level
Mhm.
that you can kind of see and say, oh, get a handle on. I'm telling you guys all these things 'cause I made tons of mistakes, tons. I wish I would have done all of this right when I graduated, to be honest with you, or especially when I started my own practice. I wish I would have done it. It was different when I was getting my license and I was kind of working in different places. The thing is, if you want, you can start like multiple LLCs, if you want. I did a general one because I knew I was going to do other things other than just the therapy part. So that's why I just said Chris Bedard PLLC. But if you wanted to start one just for education, like I'm going to start an education company, you can do another PLLC or whatever. You know what I mean? You can do multiple of those. Um, and there's other benefits to all these things as well. Uh, like when I do contract work, I do the contract work through my PLLC, not me personally. So if I do contract work sometimes, like I've done consulting work, well, I'm consulting as my corporation, not as Chris Bedard personal. So they pay me through my PLLC so that I can pay myself and get the taxes out that way. Because when you contract with people, you get a 1099, which is what the other thing about the places that you're going to work. If you go there and don't have a W-2, you're going to get what's called a 1099, which means they're going to report to the government everything they paid you, and there's going to be zero taxes taken out of that. You have to take those taxes out. Does that make sense? And that's the biggest thing to kind of wrap your head around too. There's great things about growing a really successful practice, and then there's some downsides because you pay more in taxes as you grow too.
So is it possible to do the PLLC and then work under somebody else who would originally have given you a 1099, but have them bill it as consulting instead?
No, because
Okay.
you're still whatever you are with them no matter what, right? You're still even as I have a PLLC and an S corp, and if I do consulting, they're still going to give me a 1099. The only way this would be different is if you worked for them as a W-2. In other words, a full-time employee. You'd be
Okay.
W-2, right? If you're part-time, you don't even get a W-2. If you're full-time, you would. Now there are practices out there that are large enough that they do hire full-time people too. That happens too. Where there's not like a percentage or anything, you can just get a salary. That happens too. That's out there. There's actually quite a few of those now out there.
Well, you were saying though, when you consult, they pay Chris Bedard PLLC, and I'm
Correct.
thinking, is
Yeah.
that a 1099 to
Yeah.
PLLC?
Yeah.
Oh,
Whenever you do contract work with people, that's always a 1099.
okay, but it could be to the PLLC, and then you pay yourself out of that. I think that's
That's
what she's
so they
asking.
pay me in my business account, and then I pay myself a salary every. I'll do it every 2 weeks. So that's
Okay.
the taxes come out of that. But if I owe more taxes at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter, then I have to pay those. It depends on how much you're paying me, right?
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
And then you have to do the bookwork of the taxes, taking
Correct.
out salary and
Yeah,
all
but I do that. I just use QuickBooks and it does all of it for you.
all of it for you.
Yeah.
So there's math involved in owning your own business.
There's math involved. Yeah, there's math involved.
I tried to do the math-free profession, but it sounds like I've failed.
No, there's math involved. And most of the math is not hard. One thing to think one thing math related to think about would be, and this is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning. Some of this will all comes down to how much you feel like you need to make. So if you think, okay, I'm gonna make up some numbers, okay, this just for the sake of argument. If I'm gonna end up as a self-employed person and I'm gonna pay 25% of everything I make to the government or the federal through taxes and Social Security and all those things. I didn't mean for that to sound bad because that's what we do. We pay our FICA and our uh, federal taxes and everything. And I'm just making up 25%. So if I make $1,000, I'm really keeping 750. But if I'm also paying the practice, 40%, that's another 3 grand, 300 roughly. So I'm really making $450 in a week. Let's just say that's a week. I'm making these numbers up, okay? You can do some math and kind of get it more accurate. Does that make sense? So to make the 350, how many people am I seeing, right? Like to make the 1,000. So in other words, if I really need to keep $1,000 a month, then I need to increase what I'm doing by 60%, roughly. Does that make sense? So I'm seeing 10, I need to see 16. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And by the way, I need to charge a
Yeah.
certain amount so I know what that is. Did anybody in your groups as y'all talk about like how much to charge people or
I mean,
think
we
about
talked about
that?
how much the sites that we are at now charge for intern or associate, but we didn't discuss like how much you would need to charge versus how
Yeah.
many clients you need to see to make the amount of money that your goal is.
How much does everybody's site charge now? Like as an intern versus an associate? Excuse me.
So mine charges 50 for an intern, and then she was debating on going up to 75, and currently she charges 100 for the associate's license, and she was thinking about going up to 125.
Anybody else charge that much?
My site currently charges 75 for interns. They have a sliding scale, so it goes from like 60 to 90 depending. And 100 for LPCA. I don't know their
100?
full
You
license rate.
said
100,
100,
100.
yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all make a lot of money. I didn't get nearly that much when I came out.
I'm not getting any of that at
Yeah.
my practical site at the moment,
No,
but this
no,
is
I'm saying,
my
yeah, when you get your associates, yeah.
okay, good. I was like, I thought we weren't supposed to, but yeah. And she needed me to see a number of like a certain number of clients
Yeah,
minimum to pay
yeah.
for the access to the different programs that
Yep.
her practice uses.
Yep.
But so
'Cause-
far, I've been seeing that many.
So if you're an owner and you have 5 rooms, what do you want those rooms to be? Full all the time.
All the time.
That's why you have to see so many, X amount. So it's simple. It's not hard math when you start thinking about, I need to see X amount of people to get X amount of money. You know, and honestly, it's as easy as like creating a simple Excel spreadsheet, and that can tell you like kind of you can estimate it and kind of see how much you're going to pay, like how much you're going to like how much you make and how much you're going to take out, right? So, um, I think I said this early on. As you get your full license, and you say, "I want to go on my own. I don't want to pay 60% anymore. I mean, 40% or 30%. I want to pay." Because if you go out on your own, let's say 4 of y'all decide to get together and like, "Hey, let's start something and let's just share." Potentially, what you're only paying out is maybe 10% for each. Like everybody's paying 10% or 15%. Then you're keeping 85%, right? You know, um, and it really depends on how much you hustle. It really does. Um, because you can do other things too. You can do presentations, you can do like educational types of things, you can run groups still, you can do retreats, you can develop, you can do all those things and kind of develop those things and create those and all those things are you can do. And you can charge for all those things. Um, and so I think sometimes we kind of get stuck with like how much do I charge or kind of it's really kind of maybe it depends on your area a little bit and maybe it depends on the folks you're working with a little bit, but it also depends on like what you feel like you're offering, like the value that you offer someone too. um, uh, but does that all make sense? Hopefully I just like opened up the fire hose and sprayed at you here for the last 40 minutes. I didn't have a chance to talk about this today, but I'll do it next time, like talking about like insurance, billing, that type of thing. I'll talk about that next time. I don't want to rush that. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Because there's a difference between saying I'm going to be a self-paid person or an insurance person. Those are a little bit different too. And really, it just depends on how fast you want to build your practice more than anything. And how fast you want to make money. I mean, really, it kind of depends on that too. So, but we'll talk about that next time. Any other questions about any of those things? And you'll have questions from now on forever. This won't end. Like like as things come up, you're gonna be like, "Hey, I wonder about this." That's okay. That's pretty normal. That happens. What I'd like to do is I'm gonna stop this part of class, but I'm gonna stick around for the next 10 or 12 minutes for anybody that's like concerned about hours, like I'm worried about getting my hours. I'd like to talk to you now versus 4 weeks from now. If you're not concerned about hours, you have no more questions, you're free to go and do whatever you want for the rest of the day, and then we'll meet up again in a couple of weeks. But if you have questions about like hours or other questions, please stay on, and I'll stay here as long as I need to. All right. I'm gonna stop the recording too.